Guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you guys are new. So for today's video, I was thinking about doing a mid-month wrap-up. I've already read 6 books this month, which is basically the same amount of book I read last month, but it's only the mid-February right now. So in order to not have an hour-long end of the month wrap-up, I will do this video right now. The very first book I finished this month was Reflection by Elizabeth Lim. This was part of my fairy tale retelling pick for this month. This book, guys, was so good. I have a reading vlog where I read this vlog and I review it in more detail, but this was really good and I highly recommend this book. This is part of Disney Twisted Tale. So basically Disney took all of the original stories or fairy tale and they put a darker twist on it, and this one is Mulan inspired, and it is what if Mulan had to travel to the underworld. And it's basically, this picks off right after Mulan fires her cannon into the mountain, which causes the avalanche. But in this book, Shang gets injured and he is basically dying, and she gets a visit from Shang's dad, asking her to save his son. So she travels to the underworld and make a deal with the king, what's his name? King Yama, the king of Dayu, which is basically like Chinese hell. She makes a deal with King Yama to save Shang. That's where the story picks off. The author did a great job of like capturing the essence of the book and the essence of the characters in the original movie. I thought it was really well done. I feel like Mulan is probably one of the funniest Disney princess movie. So, and I think she did a really great job of capturing that humor in this book. We don't have Mushu or Cricket in this book, which is kind of sad. I feel like, who made this decision? It's kind of weird, but whatever. We do have another character named Shishi in this book, and we have the same kind of humor as Mushu through him, so it kind of makes up for it. The love story in this book is not super prominent, so if you guys are not a fan of romance, I would still recommend this book. And as far as retelling, I do feel like this is more of a Orphan Paradise retelling, way more than a Mulan retelling, because it's basically the exact same characters as Mulan. So I don't feel like it's a retelling of Mulan, but I do feel like it's a retelling of Orphan Paradise story. I feel like it's basically almost the exact same thing, especially in the beginning. I did say in my vlog that I did feel like this reads as a video game, and I still stand by this. And what I mean by that is, especially in the underworld, they have to advance and then they meet someone which you would consider like a boss, and then they have to defeat that person, and then they can advance a little bit more, and then they have to defeat that person. So that's why I feel like this reads as a video game, like the storyline reads as a video game, but also the way that the underworld is described to us also feels like a video game in my mind. I don't know why, but I did feel like I could imagine it as a video game, the underworld. So that's pretty much it for this book. Highly recommend. I think I gave this 4.5 star or 5 star. This was a really good book. The only thing is, I feel like this was a little bit young, which makes sense since it's a Disney book, so they would want to appeal to younger people, but I still enjoyed it and I still would recommend this book. So this was a really good book. So the second book I finished this month is Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade. This book is all over YouTube right now. It's getting rave reviewed by pretty much everyone, so I had really high hopes and high expectation for this book, and sadly this book kind of let me down a little bit. I did enjoy the storyline overall. I thought it was a pretty cute story. It's a love story, it's a romance book, so you know what you're getting into. So I mean, it was a cute book, but the premise of the story is basically this girl who is oversized and she writes fan fiction on this show, which is basically Game of Thrones. And she, I think, is pretty popular in the fan fiction world. So one day she posts a picture of herself in a costume and it goes viral, and one of the stars of the show invites her on a date, and they go on a date and it kind of goes poorly, which is, I thought, was really fun because we don't see that very often in like romance book. During that date we learned that he also writes fan fiction on his own show, which I feel like it's not very realistic. I doubt very much that a star of that big of a show would write fan fiction on his own show. He is a pretty well-known actor. He is in magazine, paparazzi are following him, so I find it pretty unrealistic that he would write fan fiction on his own show. But that aside, I still think the love story itself was a pretty cute love story. I really like the two characters, like their relationship I thought was really cute, and I really like him. He was really, like, I really like him as a character. My problem with this book was we are introduced to the main character. I don't remember her name. I suck at name. But when we are introduced to the main character, she's a plus size character, but she's introduced to us as a very confident girl and a very body positive girl, which is great because we don't see that very often in romance in book in general, where we have a plus size girl who is very confident. So I really enjoy that aspect. But my problem is we spend basically half of the book talking about her weight and how she struggled with people making fun of her weight or making comment on what she eats, and you know, just that in general. It wouldn't be a problem if that was supposed to be like one of the theme of the book, but I felt like if we introduce a character who is very body positive and very confident, we shouldn't spend half of the book talking about her weight and her struggle with weight. So I mean, that was my problem. I felt like she was very two-dimensional. So basically half of the book is on the fan fiction aspect, and half of the book is on the fan fiction aspect, and the other half is on her struggle with weight. So I wish we had more depth to that character. We do get a little bit of her, like, of her job at the beginning of the book, but it goes nowhere. We don't know any of her friends. We are introduced to some of her co-workers at the end of the book, but like, I mean, in the last chapter. So I felt like we were missing a lot of things with her. I felt like we spent a lot of time discussing her struggle with weight and like fat shaming. Like I said, it would be fine, but I felt like that was basically the only topic we talked about in the book. That being said, I don't want to take away from the book. I think it could be an amazing book for people who are maybe struggling with being oversized or overweight. I think it's a really cute book. I do think it could be a really good book for some people. I just wish we had more depth to the character and to the storyline. That's pretty much it. So that's why I gave this book 3.5 stars. So after reading that book, I was in the mood for a fantasy book, so I picked up A Curse for Dark and Lonely by Brigid Kemmerer. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling book. I had heard amazing things about this book. I had heard amazing reviews from a few different people here on YouTube, so I had a really high expectation for this book, but sadly, once again, this book kind of was a letdown for me. In the beginning, I did feel like this was very similar to A Court of Thorns and Roses book, which makes sense because they're both Beauty and the Beast retelling, but I did feel like I liked A Court of Thorns and Roses better than this book. You know, all throughout the beginning of the book, I just kept thinking of A Court of Thorns and Roses. So that was kind of a bummer. It is dual points of view, so you're getting the point of view of the guy and the girl, which I kind of enjoyed. I really like Ren better as a character. I liked, what's her name? Harper. I liked Harper. I really liked her relationship with Gray, which is not the main love interest. People were saying that they felt like this was a love triangle. I did not see that. I didn't really think that she was torn between the two characters. I always thought she was gonna end up with, like, maybe that's a spoiler. But I always, you know, I never thought she was torn between the two people. But I really like her friendship with Gray. I did really like her relationship with Ren as well. I don't know. I felt like I couldn't really relate to her in some weird way. I did like that her reaction to what was happening was pretty realistic, but I still couldn't really relate to her in a weird way. I don't know why. This is one of those fantasy where you have our world and then their world, which is like parallel to ours, which I think maybe I just don't really like those type of fantasy. I just want to be immersed in a fantasy world. Maybe that was the problem. the ending of the book kind of leaves off at a cliffhanger, not a big cliffhanger, but just a little one. So I'm still intrigued to continue on with the series. If I can find it for like at a discount or for on sale, then I think I will continue on the series, but I'm not in a hurry to read the second book, which I'm kind of sad about. But yeah, so that's it for A Curse to Dark and Lonely. So after reading that book, I decided to pick up Shipped by Angie Hockman. This was a really cute book, guys. This was compared to The Unhoneymooners meet The Hating Game, which is like two of my favorite like romance book of all time. I read The Unhoneymooners last year, and I read The Hating Game a long time ago. I don't really remember too much about it, but I do remember that I like that book. This book like had high stake. I feel like this book, I had really high expectation for this book, and it delivered. It was such a cute book. It's basically these two persons who are up for the same promotion, and their boss, to get a better idea of who he wants to promote, send them on a cruise ship, and then they have to prepare a proposal. I did feel like it was maybe a quick love story. Like they fell in love pretty quick in this book, but I mean, it's a romance, it's fine. This was really fun. It was the perfect book at the time that I read it. I don't have too much to say about it, but it's a really cute book. It's a perfect escape book for the winter that I'm living in right now. I wish I was on a cruise ship right now. It's a really cute book. I really liked it. It has this big subplot of like animal preservation, which I really enjoyed as well in this book. It was a really cute book. If you read it, I highly recommend reading the author note in this book. It was such a cute book. It was the perfect book at the time that I read it. It's nothing serious, nothing, you know, nothing too deep, but it was just a really fun time. So yeah. So the next book I read this month is Sisters Red by Jackson Pearce. This is another of my fairy tale retelling book that I chose this month. This is a Little Red Riding Hood retelling. This was really popular years ago, and I had really high hopes for this book because I did hear some pretty good reviews on this book. I ended up really liking it, but it kind of fell flat in the end. This reminded me so much of Supernatural, the TV show. If you guys saw the TV show, I think this is very similar. It's two siblings hunting monster. The older sibling is this is my family business. This is my duty. I have to hunt monster. And the younger sibling wants to have a normal life and wants to try to live like everybody else, but at the same time she feels like she has a duty to the world to save people because there's these monsters out there in the world. So the younger sibling is torn between those two situations. So it's very much like Supernatural. I really enjoyed that show, so it wasn't a problem for me. But yeah, I didn't see anyone do that comparison, so maybe it's just me. People were saying how they hated Rosie, and in the beginning I really liked her. I really liked her thought process a lot better. I could relate to her a lot more than Scarlett. Scarlett came off as very harsh and cold in the beginning, which is totally understandable because of what she lived and what she's been through, so we get it. But it was harder for me to relate to her and want to know her better. But as the book went on, I did end up really liking Scarlett's arc and storyline. I liked it better than Rosie's in the end. There's a love story in this book which kind of was weird. He is 21 years old, she is 16, which is only a 5-year gap, which is not the biggest gap you would get, but I feel like at that age it's a pretty big gap. I think it just wasn't very necessary to the book. I don't think it was super necessary. It's a love triangle, but not love triangle. I just weirdly, even though I love romance book, I feel like in this book it could have been like completely taken off and I would have been happy with the book still. And I just, in the end, this fell flat because I was missing a lot of the backstory and a lot of the world building. The storyline was really good, but we were missing of the backstory and the world building, and like, why are they called Fenrises when they are werewolves? Like, where do they come from? Why are they there? Like, I was just missing something. There is a big reveal, a big twist in the end of the book, which I didn't see coming, so I like that. I like that aspect. The last 100 pages were pretty good. I really liked it. So in the end, I think I gave this 3.5 star. It was a good book. I like the storyline. I was missing a lot in this book in the end. So the last book I read up until now basically is The Wrong Family by Tarrym Fisher. I picked this book up because it is the Book Troop pick of the month. The Book Troop is Gabby Reed's book club. It's mainly thrillers, maybe some horror, but I think it's mainly thrillers book. And this was the February pick of the month. And I picked it up. I had no idea what this book is about, and I've been in the mood for a thriller for a while now, so I picked this one up. And once again, this kind of fell flat for me a little bit. The first half of the book was kind of boring, and it resembled a lot of something else. I feel like thrillers are hard to review without spoiling them, and I do think this is one of the books that you should get into blind. So I'm gonna try to review this book, but it's gonna be hard. So the first half of the book was kind of boring. It resembled a lot a movie I'm not gonna talk about because it's good, you're gonna get spoiled. It wasn't really a thriller. It wasn't one of those like page turner you need to know what was going to happen. But then the second half of the book, that's where everything unfolds and everything happened. And it was pretty good. I liked it. I did guess all of the twists right before they happen, which kind of defeats the purpose of reading a thriller. So I think that's why I didn't enjoy this book as much. Yeah, I guess pretty much everything right before it happened. So I was kind of disappointed in this, and I'm still in the mood for a good thriller now. So yeah. So these were all the books I have read so far this month. Leave in the comments down below what you are reading right now, so I can maybe get some ideas to what to read next. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.